In money matters, the rand edged up in early trade, building on gains from the previous week. However, trading is expected to be cautious this week ahead of several major global monetary policy decisions. Portfolio manager at Rand Swiss Viv Govender joins us now for market analysis on the latest business news. Thank you very much, Viv, for your time this afternoon. So the rand continues to rally before the 19 rand against the dollar mark. What's driving trade?
It's a couple of things. I think you firstly need to look at the fact that before we had that announcement by the U.S. ambassador that we were selling arms to the Russians or transferring arms to the Russians, we were at about 1830, 1840 to the U.S. dollar. So we would expect, at least getting back to there. But since then, we've had some good news. We've had the load shedding levels come down. So now, at the moment, we have no load shedding in the day, and I think about 3 in the after about 4 o'clock. And remember, before it was 4 in the day and 6 at 4 o'clock. So that's good. And also, we had a current account balance coming a bit better than expected. So a number of positive factors have come into play in the last week or so, which I would think would make us probably head at least to the level we were at before the accusations from the U.S. ambassador.
Okay, long may it continue. Here's a story that's grabbed headlines for the past couple of weeks. Telkom confirming now that it has received an unsolicited, non-binding letter from a consortium led by Sipho Maseko for the acquisition of a controlling stake in Telkom. So how should the group be dealing with it, the offer that is, and how has their share price responded?
Well, I mean, the share price is higher, no doubt. Up quite nicely today, about 5% or so. But if you compare that to the actual number we talked about, we're about 50% off from that number, 50. This is I think the third or so Telkom offer purchase something agreement that's been, in the works in the last, I think, year or so. So I think the reason for that is quite simple. Telkom is an incredibly valuable asset, but it's, as a company, it's quite cheap. It's about 16 billion rands, 1.6. Compare that to like an MTN, which is closer to 250 billion rands. So we're talking about, it's less than 1/10 the valuation of like an MTN. So there's a lot of opportunity at Telkom. Unfortunately, no one has ever been able to really extract that opportunity properly.
What does that mean?
Well, I mean, look, they have the lines in place, they have the legacy infrastructure, they have spectrum that they can use. There's a number of different things that Telkom has. It has name recognition. If you think of it, if you were to launch a new, mobile company in South Africa, how much would you spend to get to the capacity of Telkom? And it'll probably be in the region of in excess of 100 billion rands, Yet Telkom is trading at 16 billion, showing that the actual asset that they have, the valuation of that asset is very, very high. However, they just have not been able to exploit it properly. It's like, a bad driver in a great car.
Could that be then why you are seeing these offers in order to turn the tide? Somebody seeing a light at the end of this tunnel?
Almost certainly. I think if you look at an opportunity like Telkom and you think to yourself, this is all the things it has, surely we can make more than this in terms of valuation. Put it this way, if Telkom was to get to 1/5 of MTN's valuation, this deal that they're offering right now is cheap. They're basically offering like 1/10 of MTN's valuation for Telkom. So there's opportunity at Telkom, but for whatever reason, maybe legacy structures in terms of how the company is structured, staffing, whatever decision may be there. It's never been able to fully exploit the advantages it has. And if someone's able to come in, with a clean, brush and just basically, take the assets that are valuable and really use them to the full ability, I think obviously it'd be worth much, much more than it is right now. But like I said, nobody's been able to do it, quite frankly, over the last decades or so.
Okay, let's take a look at news from Vukile Property Fund. They say they expect to grow further in the new financial year amid lower than expected pressure on consumers over the past 18 months. Help us make sense of their performance.
Well, I mean, I think they are one of the few places that are seeing lower than expected pressure on the consumer, because if you look at most other places, look at African Bank, look at Capitec, look at, Tagabras results, they all seem to be indicating that the South African consumer is under a great deal of pressure. I think that if you're looking at the property sector has been probably the worst hit sector due to the COVID situation. Not only do they have the COVID lockdown issues, but since the end of COVID, we've seen people's patterns change. They don't do the same things they did before. They don't shop at the same places they shopped before. They don't go to the same places. Like they don't go to work most times, and therefore the walls that were built around office workers are not as useful as they were before. So yeah, that is one thing. Obviously, as well, load shedding has been a major issue. People don't want to be stuck in traffic. They don't want to travel that far. So load shedding has obviously been an issue as well for them. So yeah, the fact that they're seeing something positive coming through it is good. They are seeing their focus is primarily in the lower income or rural areas, and the fact that they are seeing less pressure on the consumer, I think is very good news. Because almost every other indicator I see for that consumer segment is negative at the moment.
Okay. South Korean prosecutors have charged a former Samsung Electronics executive on suspicion of stealing the company's technology to build a chip factory in China. What's going on?
Not to be like stereotypical or whatever, but this is something that the Chinese are known for. Basically, what they do is they are quite comfortable with taking technology from more developed countries and basically bringing it back to China to kind of leapfrog certain stages. So I do think that that kind of makes sense that they're doing this. Some U.S. Especially officials have said the Chinese government doesn't just spy for political reasons or military reasons. They spy for economic reasons as well. They will basically spy on a private company in order to get information to one of their companies back in China. China is facing a lot of pressure at the moment. For those that don't know, in the last couple of years or so, President Biden has been extremely anti-China. He's focusing especially on the chip sector. So he's trying to take away China's ability to build chips. So not only is China able to import high-end chips, so they can't import the equipment used to make lower-end chips as well, or some lower-end chips, because the company that makes them is the Netherlands, and the Netherlands is a big ally of the U.S., so it's kind of being banned. The Chinese know that this is a big weakness of theirs, so they're trying to get somewhere around this. So they're trying to build their own local tech sector, not just assemble stuff for Apple and so on. And in order to do this, what they're trying to do is kind of, acquire technology. And this is, I think, part of that effort.
What is it going to take to get China out of the woods?
Look, I mean, China's a huge country, lots of brain power, lots of engineers. But you have to understand, when it comes to chip technology, if you have to look at everything that human beings do, from agriculture to biology to everything, I would argue that making of computer chips is the thing that we are the most advanced at. The level of precision of these chips, the equipment used to make it, I mean, you're talking one fab machine is like billions and billions, sometimes in excess of $10 billion. The made in Taiwan, it consumes, I think the sector consumes over 10% of Taiwan's total energy consumption. Incredibly high-end, very complicated machinery. So it's going to take a long time to get to that point where the Chinese are competitive. But, you've got to start somewhere, and I think the Chinese are being quite aggressive right now because they can see that, in the very near future, they are going to be having a real problem trying to acquire, state-of-the-art computer chips, especially in the world of AI and other military uses as well for these chips.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of starting somewhere, President Cyril Ramaphosa will this week be joining 5 other leaders from the continent heading on over to Ukraine and Russia for peace talks. And so aesthetically at least, because we've had the Reserve Bank come out and giving a warning in terms of possible sanctions or consequences, we've sent an envoy before or envoys before, and now you've got the head of the Republic actually going out there. Is this enough to at least turn down the volume a tad on this issue and reflect a different picture of South Africa?
I think it's more about reflecting a different picture of South Africa. I think in terms of the actual, war there, we have no input on that. I think to some extent the Ukrainians have less input as well, because it's effectively a NATO/US kind of effort against the Russians, and it kind of would make us look a little more even-handed, not pro-Russia, which is very important at the moment because, like the Reserve Bank said, we can't afford sanctions from the West. We would be crippling. So yeah, as a cosmetic, as a political thing, very good. As an actual, big happening that's going to impact the course of the war, I don't think so. This war has its own drivers that have nothing to do with us, and that we have no influence over, quite frankly.
That's just it. Thank you very much to Viv Govender, portfolio manager at Rand Swiss.